I attended a Native American Indian medicine wheel workshop in my local town. As we sat down to chant and drum, surrounding a campfire, I began to vibrate in my bones. We drummed and chanted until the early hours until the shaman spoke of the ancestors who were sacred to them. I got into bed and very unceremonially I called upon one of the ancestors, the only one I could remember I might add. Black Lightning Eagle. Too tired to care, I fell asleep. I awoke in a dream. I say I awoke because the dream was totally lucid. I was fully awake. I was in the garden of the seminar center where I was staying. All over the trees and bushes was what looked like angel hair. You know, the kind of cobweb-like hair that you decorate Christmas trees with. As I was wondering what I was to do with this angel hair, I suddenly realized I was not alone and stood behind me was an angel. This was my guardian angel. I asked what we were to do with the angel hair and she suggested we gather it up to a pile on the lawn, which we did. Once we had a big pile, I asked what to do now. The angel said, "You are the weaver, weave." As I took a piece of the angel hair in my hands, it turned into multicolored thread, which I then used to weave a kaleidoscopic pattern of many colors. As I completed this, a huge black symbol, which actually looked like lightning burns, appeared on the multicolored banner. Once complete, we proudly, the angel and I, walked around the garden holding our banner aloft. Soon as I awoke, I knew this was significant, but I had no idea what it meant. I instantly drew the black symbol. When we all went down for breakfast, the shamans asked us if we had any dreams. I told my dream and showed them the symbol, and they were open-mouthed, gasping in amazement. Dream weaver. Everyone else seemed to know what this meant. I was new to shamanic practices, so I did not, too shy to ask what that meant. I nodded, pretending I also know what they were talking about. I had no idea what it all meant, but I knew it was something special. I returned home and made a huge banner out of colored fabric in a kaleidoscopic pattern with the black symbol on top. Many years later, I sat down to write my book, The Mission of the One Star. In the first pages I read back the words, "We are the weavers, the dream weavers." At the time I thought that symbol was a calling card, if you like, of these beings called the dream weavers, and I had been given it as a way of making contact with them. Little did I know at the time the full significance of this symbol, only now am I coming to realize. Many years later I began to have this same angel turns up in my meditation. Her name was Shekta. She often manifested as a wonderful rainbow-colored energy burst. It was my mind that gave her shape, and realized that this being was an angel. She moved into my meditations daily, working with my energy body, until finally one day I began to communicate with her. She took me on such a journey, which climaxed with her telling me that she was my angelic aspect, she was me on a higher level. Of course, this took me a long time before I could finally accept this and finally integrate her energy into my body. This was the beginning of my journey of the integration of my soul. She was the first aspect to integrate. Many more aspects came. You can read all about this in my book, The Mission of the One Star. When I finally integrated her energy and she confirmed this, I then had the symbol tattooed on the back of the neck. I always knew this symbol was important, but never really understood how important or why. I pondered this symbol a lot, wondering why my angel would pick this as its symbol. I thought it looked a little like a person with its arms up, and the base looked like tail feathers. The years rolled by, other soul aspects, other guides turned up, and I thought little of the symbol even though I was walking around with it tattooed on my neck. What caught my attention was when I was watching a documentary on the Dogon tribes and their many dances and rituals. I thought to myself, that the headdresses were very similar to my angelic symbol. It was not until I watched David Talbot's fantastic documentary Symbols of an Alien Sky that I came to understand what this symbol was and its importance. Perhaps the most compelling discovery comes from the sciences. Independent investigation over the past 12 years has confirmed that the celestial formations Talbot reconstructed, all from historical evidence, precisely match the behavior of electric discharge in the plasma laboratory and in remote space. A convergence of historical evidence and plasma science has occurred. The converging research points to planetary instability and intense electrical events in ancient times. A challenge to some of the most cherished assumptions in today's theoretical sciences. David Talbot. Plasma scientists are now comparing electrical discharge formations in the laboratory to rock art images around the world. Anthony Parrott, who is a leading authority on plasma phenomenon, has been researching unstable formations that develop in high-energy electrical discharge. The more elaborate discharges forms are now called Parrott instabilities. Within a communication with David Talbot, Parrott became intrigued by the similarity of ancient rock art to the discharge formations he had been recording. He noticed that he was seeing the very same formations painted on the walls of AbZu, as he had seen in his laboratory experiments. Parrott then got together a team of 30 people who investigated over 25,000 rock art images. The squatter man configuration depicted above occurs when a disc or donut-like torus around a linear discharge column is bent by magnetic fields induced by intense current flow. From the viewpoint of the observer, the edges of the upper disc may appear to point up, forming arms, and those of the lower torus may appear to point down, forming legs. The underlying hourglass pattern, with many subtle variations, occurs around the world. What is plasma instability? A point at which high-density plasma or electrified gas can no longer hold its charge. The plasma then changes its shape according to the nature of the current running through it. There is an array of resultant shapes. See Parrott's paper or just Google plasma instability images. They include beads, bullets, and strings of beads, sausages, chains, lighters, serpents, eyes, feathers, feathered dancers and serpents, and so on. Plasma is scalable, that is, what happens in space can be recreated in a lab for detailed analysis. The image is lab plasma and constitutes the form of the squatting man. It may also be the origin of the archetype of the Holy Grail. After a lengthy analysis of the petroglyphs, scientist Anthony Parrott concluded this phenomenon of giant plasma instability had appeared across the globe and appeared about 50,000 kilometers high. Electricity in plasma discharges create rapidly morphing shapes, rotations, pinching, spheroids which flatten into disks with outer curving edges, creating bowl shapes which may appear as limbs along the discharging axis. When the formation reaches a saturation point, the formation breaks apart, very explosively. The plasma event giving rise to the squatting man image may have lasted for up to 1,000 years as visible phenomena before it faded completely. The rings, columns, spirals, ladders, snakes, feathered serpents, beads and strings of beads and dragon shapes which rolled and rotated with varying degrees of luminosity and transparency were interpreted as gods. Carved into rock for immortality and mythologized, humans levied worship on these awesome sights. So the symbol given to me by an angel in a dream was a plasma discharge out in the cosmos. This discovery made me go back into my studies of Dan Winter's work about the two families of angels. There are two families of angels, the seraphim and the Ophnin. The seraphim were thought of as huge fiery dragons, the high-winged ones. The Ophnin were the bird tribes, the thunderbirds. The seraphim were symbolized by the twin serpents wrapped around each other. The Ophnin were symbolized by the wings, both together create the famous caduceus. The twin serpents spiraling around a center column is the light filaments that are pinched together to create Brooklyn currents. The plasma filaments weave around each other and then create a toroidal movement which causes the plasma field to donut, which is the beginning of the spin. Toroidal movement creates arcs or wings. The caduceus is the combination of the seraphim serpents entwined and the Ophnin wings. The seraphim created the spin, the means by which to impregnate the plasma field with an electrical charge, which is life, but there was no way of steering this life-igniting lightning bolt. As life evolved and the serpents danced around each other, they created spin which began to implode upon itself. Within this implosion the wings of the Ofnan could be seen to form. Now this life-giving tornado, the seraphim, had the wings, Ofnan, by which to steer itself. This combination of electrical discharges, the seraphim serpents and the Ofnan wings, within the plasma field creates a self-aware, self-steering, life-giving angelic feathered serpent. So these two tribes of angels are really electrical currents needed to create self-aware life. Angels or angles, they are the electrical movements of the plasma field as it becomes self-organizing and self-aware. The symmetry operations of these angelic forces of creation are highly charged light language, the language of life. They created life by setting up patterns of mini donuts, charged domains into a spiral, and thus the caduceus was formed. It is said in myth and legend that the two families of angels fought in the heavens, and to create peace between them they combined their energies together to create the feathered serpent, or known by the Maya as Quetzalcoatl. This feathered serpent was also Shekta, my angel. She was a highly charged plasma discharge pattern. She burrowed her way into the plasma field just like a sperm enters an egg and created life in our universe. This is how she incarnated herself into matter. From this electrical discharge within the plasma field, she was able to create galaxies, solar systems, planets, beings. The caduceus was a visual representation of how life became in this universe and how angels incarnate into matter. This symbol on my neck was not only the calling card of an angel as first thought, but was also a graphic interpretation of how to create life, and how to incarnate into matter. By giving me this symbol, not only was I learning a lot about how life came to be in the universe, I was coming to realize that this symbol was a way of embedding that angelic energy into the cells of my body. This was true integration. These lightning bolts caused life to form in the plasma, it caused DNA to form. The angels through their language of light formed symmetry to form in the plasma, along which, DNA began to form. The plasma had to be able to hold this charge, it had to know how to swallow the charge, swallow the serpent in order to hold charge and create life. By tattooing this symbol on my neck, I had imprinted, or rather burned into my energy field, the symbol of my awakening. You can read how the goddess Lilith experienced the lightning bolts of life in my earlier book, Her Perspective. Electrical fields became self-aware and self-organizing. This is the initial start of life. These electrical fields, these angels embedded themselves into the structures which were forming through the interaction of the electrical discharge within the plasma field. It is possible to embed or incarnate into other bodies, not just the human physical body. Angels inhabit or embed themselves into the plasma body of galaxies, solar systems, stars, planets and human bodies. Was this what Shekta was trying to do, embed herself into the cells of my body, into plasma within my field? You thought that you could only inhabit a body, did you know you can inhabit even the stars? Angelic beings are plasma beings the size of stars. This symbol, this angelic rune which Shekta gave me, was the shadow that Ananda Hari cast upon the lower dimension as she projected her consciousness down and manifests herself as a geometric seraphim/Ofnan feathered serpent, and took up her place within an angelic grid or fractal field and became part of the angelic hierarchy. As I spiraled around and around, causing all to spin, my centripetal force moved all to center. As this vortex cast out its shadows, the angle of the shadow caused a pattern to be mirrored into the dimension below me and formed a vortex shadow angle or angel which held the angelic grid in place in perfect balance. All these shadow angles of angels created a language of geometry, angelic alphabet. It is said that there were two families of angels, the seraphim and the Ofnan, one with wings and the other with no sight to see. The seraphim in terms of physics are light filaments with the power of the Creator. These mighty and huge serpent beings move throughout the void in silent retreat. Their undulating movements are sensual and with ease. They appear as if they move slowly through the blackness of the Nagwal. However, this is an illusion, as they do not really move at all but are everywhere, as they are the Nagwal itself. They spiral around each other in a perpetual movement of ecstasy, as theirs is a world of sense. Electric crackles in their wake, as they are the live wires of the universe. Plasma discharges in the waves that their constant spiraling motion creates. The serpent is blind, as it looks only within to dream dreams. Blind is our serpent with no sight to see. This is the seraphim, those with serpent scales. In terms of physics, the Offnen are the whirling ones, the wings of energy discharge as the spiral vortex of the seraphim bends to become the torus, that which creates all life. The seraphim are two spiraling Brooklyn currents. They have the life power to create, a gift from the Creator. However, they do not have the ability to self-steer their tornado. As they moved throughout the void creating vortexes of spin, the spin evolved into a toroidal wave pattern. Just like in the image of the caduceus, there are two spiraling serpents ascending the middle pillar, and there are wings on top. The wings represent the Offnen, the bird tribes. They are the intelligence of the Taurus. Before this new phase of evolution, the seraphim/serpent/light filaments could only create spin brought about by the attention of the universal dreamer. They did not have the ability to steer or navigate their way through the dimensions forming below the Nagwal. It is said that the bird tribes had passion, and compassion, the ability to self-organize, self-steer, self-direct, its own sentient consciousness. There was no war between these two beings, only a process of plasmic experience, joined into a life-creating torus. The seraphim and the Offnen came together to create the feathered serpent. Now they had an energy form in which they could steer. They designed the folding waves of charge that they had created in the universe. Through aligning themselves with the passion of the Creator through the bird tribes, they were then able to then fold the electromagnetic waves into beautiful geometric, mathematical masterpieces, which they then projected their consciousness into and became geometric entities. As the feathered serpents, we were angels as big as nebula. The Offnen were the intelligence that sustained the bedrock of life. Through their inherent makeup, they can redirect, reprogram photons and higher dimensional energy fields, and or redirect, reprogram the genetic code of all life forms.